The Bruins lose 5-4 in Game 5. They trail the series 3-2. I'm Evan Marinofsky here with Conor Ryan of Boston Sports Journal. And the story of tonight's game was one that no one really wants, whether you're the Islanders, whether you're the Bruins. It was the officiating. The officiating was something that was talked about a little bit after Game 4, a lot of it after Game 5.
Yeah, I think probably the best way to characterize a game like this is just frustrating. Missed opportunities, you can kind of draw the parallels to whether it be Game 5 or Game 7 against St. Louis, where it's just too many missed opportunities, a chance to really kind of build a lead and separate yourself from the Islanders in the early going. You don't get that. Still dominate for the whole first period. Then you get kind of a weak slashing call against Corrali. Leads to a power play goal from the Islanders, and you go from there, and they just keep on building off their lead. So, and whatever way you want to draw it, if you want to find a silver lining of how dominant the Bruins looked at times at 5-on-5 play, kind of throws it out the door. Right? We as much as I think both you and I love throwing out the fancy stats, I think you kind of have to look at the bottom line of this, and this was a prime opportunity for the Bruins to put the Islanders on the ropes and hopefully get a chance to knock them out in Game 6. You didn't get it, and beyond just the officiating and the lack of calls, the lack of reps the power play was able to get, you also have to look at the defense, which I think has probably been the biggest turning point of this series because if you let up 3 power play goals in the first 4 shots, you're gonna have a tough time separating yourself from a team like the Islanders, a team that should not be the group that's dicing you up on the PK.
A lot of people are going to blame Rask, and we'll get to Rask in a little bit for those first 4 goals, but all can be attributed to defensive breakdowns. A lot of were just missed coverages in front. And you can go goal by goal, and obviously some are power play, and there's not much you can do there, but I believe it was Josh Bailey in front of the net. Mike Riley just completely did not cover his guy. And there's little things like that where you're shooting yourself in the foot. With those types of plays. The other thing I think is interesting with those penalties is the Bruins don't seem to respond well when there's a bad call against them. And we saw this a few years ago, and I hate to bring this up, the 2019 Cup final, when a bad call would go against them. It was just you knew they were going to score on that power play. And I think that's something the Bruins do need to work on. Obviously tough because they don't have Kevin Miller or Brandon Carlo, 2 of their foremost penalty killers on the team. The other story, obviously, tonight's game is Tuukka Rask pulled after the second period. Bruce Cassidy saying it's maintenance, saying that he wasn't 100%. Now, he hasn't been 100% all postseason, so I think his performance in tonight's game definitely had a little push of getting Swayman in the net. Swayman makes his first stop on a breakaway and then lets in the goal. The Bruins seem confident that Rask is starting Game 6. Are you as confident?
I mean, I think you definitely have to be concerned, and throughout this postseason, both Rask and Cassidy and the Bruins have been pretty transparent with the fact that Rask has been dealing with an injury and he's been fighting through it. And for us, I think we've talked about it. It's one of those situations where I think we kind of characterize it as something you keep tabs on, but you looked at how he played in the Capital Series, you looked at how he played in the previous games against the Islanders where there wasn't a big margin for error. Played pretty well. So you imagine it's something that he's able to manage and fight through, and as long as he's, only letting in, 1-2 goals a game, you're able to survive the injury he's dealing with. Didn't look like that was the case today. I mean, as you said, the defense in front of him wasn't great. The PK wasn't great, but also there's a few of those goals that you'd like to have back. And, I mean, when you have Semyon Varlamov, who's seemed like he was turning aside every grade A shot the Bruins had. They had multiple pushbacks, and he was square to the puck. He was tracking pucks well. You need your number one goalie to answer those and keep you in the fight and not let the game get away from you. Because especially against a team like the Islanders, we saw it in the previous game, we saw it tonight. You can kind of come back against them, but when it gets down to the final minutes and they're protecting a 1-goal lead, they're tough to get even shots on net through. So you can't have those goals happen.
Varlamov's been insane. I mean, you look at the 2 goals that he gave up in the third period. The first was a one-timer from Pastrnak on the power play. That happens to every goalie. And the other was that weird bounce off his back from David Krejci. He has been locked in. And it's funny because at the time when Trotz made that move in Game 2 or before Game 2 to Varlamov, you kind of thought, well, the Bruins are still going to dominate. And they have, in a sense, offensively at times. But it hasn't mattered because Varlamov's been so good, so squared every shot, completely different from Sorokin. And I think it's affected the Bruins. I mean, Varlamov's played 44 shots tonight. 44 shots. You get 4 goals, 19 shots, 5 goals for the Islanders. So the question of the day comes down to this. Are the Bruins going to win Game 6? Can the Bruins win Game 6? And most importantly, can they actually win this series?
I mean, the odds are definitely not in their favor now, going back to Nassau Coliseum, where, I mean, the Islanders have been fantastic even before they had 14,000 fans, screaming and cheering the entire time. They've been a great home team all year. You look at, it's going to be a decision on how this team responds from it, because if you're the Bruins and you want to be the glass half full from this veteran core, you could look at how much they dominated at even strength of, if we got a few more calls going our way, if we stick to our game plan, we can hopefully get those goals that we are that you need to separate against this team. Again, the Islanders are a team that are not usually equipped to win shootouts. If you're able to get a few goals early and lock things down, you're able to beat them in a game. But so far the Bruins haven't enjoyed that luxury other than game one. They've been either chasing the game or stuck in 1-2 goal games going into the third period. So it's definitely going to be tough. I mean, you have not only the narrative now about the officiating and what's going to get called, whether the Bruins have to be worried about what the Islanders are going to get called or what have you, but also the fact that you don't really know what the status of Rask is. Like, let's say he is cleared. Are you confident he's going to be? He's definitely not 100%. We know that for sure now.
We've known that for a while.
Yes, we know that for a while, but are you going to have Rask from earlier this series from Washington, who's not 100% but still keeps you in games, or Rask that lets in a few goals that you need to have back? And you also have to include what's going to happen with Brendan Carlo or Kevin Miller if those guys are back, because they make a sizable difference. So a whole bunch of factors that are going to go into it, some that I assume we'll probably get tomorrow at morning skate when we see if maybe Carlo and Miller will be back, which would be a huge plus for the Bruins. But definitely an uphill battle. This is not a team in the Islanders that, can get knocked off their game. They stick to it. Credit to them for how they played, coming back from getting pretty much punched in the face for the first 17, 18 minutes of today's game and really kind of fighting back. So tough team to come from behind against, but for the Bruins, it's all going to have to come down to executing their game plan again and kind of sticking with it, and hopefully the officiating doesn't, become as much of a major factor as it was in today's game, unfortunately.
Well, given the comments from Trotz and Cassidy, I don't think the officiating narrative's going anywhere. I think that's staying for a bit. But that is that. That is Game 5. Bruins lose, obviously, 5-4. I almost said Bruins won. They almost did at the end. They almost did. By the way, shout out the lighting. Ian Steele hooked us up with a nice ring light. Yeah, so now you can see us. This is what we look like next to each other. We're not standing in the dark.
Very disappointing, I know.
It is very, yeah, people wanted to just see two Slendermen sitting here talking Bruins, but at any rate, that is Game 5. For Game 5, this is Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Keep it here for all of your Bruins playoff coverage.